Live from Waterford and Dungarvan, this is Waterford at 1 News.
Good afternoon, I'm Eimear McKeown. Today's top stories. The head of the Department of Health says the emergency phase of COVID-19 may be with us for months or years. For the 10th day in a row, there's just one confirmed case of the virus in University Hospital Waterford. 4 Waterford Harbour projects to receive substantial funding. And in sport, the Dublin Marathon has been cancelled due to the ongoing pandemic. The emergency phase of COVID-19 may be with us for months or years, according to the head of the Department of Health. Top health officials have been appearing before a new Dáil committee on COVID-19 today. Our political correspondent, Sean Defoe, reports.
The Dáil's COVID-19 committee is holding its first full meeting today, with top health officials being called in to answer questions on the crisis. This morning, the Secretary-General of the Department of Health, Jim Breslin, warned the acute health issues will be with us for a long time to come.
This is not a 1, a 2 or even a 3-day storm after which we move to a recovery phase. The acute phase of this crisis will definitely be measured in months and most probably in years rather than days.
There's also been questions about how people will be tested over the next few months as the economy starts to reopen. Chief Medical Officer Dr Tony Holohan says there's no plans for industries like construction to be blanket tested, but that they have made progress in reporting.
People who are subject to testing get negative test results by text. With our positivity rate at the moment at 3%, they're getting a result. 97% of people are getting a result in that way.
Dr Holohan also addressed reports that test results were being given directly to employers rather than the people actually getting tested, and says if it's happening, it's a full-stop breach of their confidentiality. Sean Defoe, Leinster House.
A Waterford TD wants to know if the Health and Safety Authority will be employing additional inspectors to oversee the return to work protocols. The measures set out the steps that businesses must take to stop the spread of coronavirus in the workplace. Sinn Féin's David Cullinan raised the matter in the Dáil.
I want to commend everybody that was involved, including the trade union movement, in putting them in place. They're ineffective if we don't have enough inspectors. So I'd like to know how many inspectors the HSA have, or if resources will be given to recruit additional inspectors to enable them to do the job.
Heather Humphreys is the Business Minister.
A number of inspectors. I don't have the exact number to hand here, but what I can say is that they will have the necessary resources that they need to carry out inspections, and they have the necessary powers just to say that. But the protocol that has been developed is very much about, employers and employees working together so that the right safety measures are put in place, so that it gives confidence to the staff to go back to work.
There are calls for healthcare workers who've contracted COVID-19 to be compensated financially. More than 7,500 frontline workers have been sick with the virus, which represents about a third of all cases. 7 have lost their lives. SIPTU's Paul Bell says they're particularly concerned about those workers who responded to the Be On Call for Ireland initiative.
We had information that told us that in some cases these workers became agency workers. They were on some type of precarious type contract, and they had no cover either for COVID leave, and they had no cover for death in service, which we found absolutely remarkable, where you would ask workers to return to Ireland in some cases and be on call for Ireland, put the green jersey on, and yet there was no fallback if anything happened.
There's no change in the number of coronavirus cases at University Hospital Waterford. For the 10th day in a row, there's just one confirmed case on site. 6 patients are awaiting the results of testing. There are no confirmed or suspected cases in intensive care. There's one new confirmed case of the virus in Waterford as of midnight on Saturday. It brings the total number of confirmed cases here since the outbreak began to 147. Coastal projects in 4 Waterford harbours have been included in a €3 million fund announced by the Agricultural Minister Michael Creed. The money will be given to Waterford City and County Council and 9 other local authorities. Waterford Fine Gael Senator John Cummins says funding of €435,000 has been made available for 4 Waterford harbour projects.
The 4 Waterford projects are located at Tramore, Helvick, Boatstrand and Youghal Bridge, and they'll involve varying amounts of construction, remediation remediation and strengthening works. This fund is critical in helping local authorities like Waterford to repair and develop their marine infrastructure, and I'm particularly conscious of how badly hit the fishery sector has been with COVID-19 and of course the looming threat that Brexit poses for the industry. So all investment in our marine and fishery infrastructure can only be a positive thing.
The Mayor of Waterford, John Pratt, says it would be wrong for the Labour Party to enter government. Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael wrote to Labour leader Alan Kelly last week to consider a coalition with them. But John Pratt says the party should remain in opposition.
Look, the Green Party, I suppose, and I don't like using the word mandate, but they got more of a mandate than we got as a Labour Party. You know, unfortunately, we have lost the seat, and you know what I mean, I think we would be wrong to go into government.
Tidy towns groups in Waterford remain under extreme pressure because of rising insurance costs. That's according to local county councillors. Over 400 community groups and sports clubs were approved last week for grants, totalling €193,000 through the Supporting Waterford Community Fund. However, this means each Tidy Towns group receives a maximum of €530. Fine Gael's Lola O'Sullivan spoke on behalf of Kilmacthomas councillor Liam Brazel, who was absent due to social distancing. They maintain that the allocation needs to be increased for groups.
It's small, but I think we're going in the right direction. We are coming under a lot of pressure in big areas of tidy town, rural areas, because of funding. Increase in insurance is a big one. That has to be taken out by tidy towns. It's putting extreme pressure on people who are voluntarily working in tidy towns.
The Council's Director of Community Services is Ivan Grimes.
I am happy enough to say, though, that we're proposing an additional level of funding for the Tidy Towns organisations that applied. So 13 Tidy Towns groups will each receive €530, which is the highest level of funding.
Waterford Council has launched a Shop Waterford Support Local campaign to help retailers and business owners for the reopening of the city and town centres. Council Communications Officer Claire Hartley told Damien Tiernan on Daysha today that the campaign wants the people of Waterford to support each other.
This is a very specific, I suppose, a very targeted campaign, and it's really asking the people of Waterford to consider, if you can shop in Waterford, for every purchase you make, how can you support Waterford produce, Waterford producers, Waterford businesses, Waterford restaurants. So it's in every way to put Shop Waterford in everything that we do.
WLR Sport, Ireland's local station of the year.
The organisers of the Dublin Marathon have announced its cancellation due to the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. The traditional 4-race series prior to the event has also been cancelled. The sold-out race was due to be staged in October and would have been the 41st edition of the event. All entries for this year's marathon and race series will be valid for the 2021 event. Watford captain Troy Deeney won't be going back to training this week. Premier League players are returning in small groups from today as part of the first steps towards resuming the season. They'll be strictly monitored and tested for coronavirus. But speaking with boxing promoter Eddie Hearn on YouTube, Deeney insists he feels it's too much of a risk.
It only takes one person to get infected with the group for that to be a 1-to-6 ratio. And again, I don't want to be bringing that home then. I've just had my son's like 5 months old. He has breathing difficulties. So I don't want to come home to put him in more danger.
Formula One would be unable to hold a British Grand Prix if personnel are not given exemptions from plans to quarantine international travellers. That's according to an F1 spokesman in response to the UK government's decision to impose a requirement on all arrivals from abroad to self-isolate for 14 days. It's been reported there are plans to start the F1 season with 2 races in Austria in July. But the 2 British races planned to follow on after that would have to be dropped if no exemptions are given. Next to rugby, Robin Copeland has joined French club Charente on a 3-year deal, ending his spell with Connacht. Finally, WLR wants you to choose Waterford's greatest sporting hero. An expert panel of 4 will compile a list of 20 sporting names with the likes of Manchester United great John O'Shea, horse racing trainer Henry de Bromhead, Ireland women's rugby captain Niamh Briggs, athletics star Thomas Spar or hurling legend John Milan potential nominees. The 20 nominees will be revealed on Daysha today on Friday, May 29th. Voting will open a day later and throughout June you can vote for your greatest sporting hero in Waterford. WLR asking you to stay at home. Our next bulletin is at 2.